Hi, my name is Sharon Blank. I've had my own interior design business for about 30 years. About 6 months ago, I segued into health and wellness. That's how I met Kyle.
So
Thank
I've
you.
been an entrepreneur in the stem cell space since 1998. I've worked in cord blood banking. I've worked in the expanded umbilical cord cells. Recently, we've shifted our gear to start providing stem cell treatments for veterans in the United States at this time. And stem cells aren't a cure. It's something you're probably going to have to go back to. But we've seen some phenomenal results. For one of the veterans presented this woman with incontinence, and that really helped her. Alcohol and stem cells don't match. Like as soon as you drink alcohol, your stem cell treatment is pretty much ablated.
How do you persuade them that it's safe?
Right now, there's no real pathway regulatory-wise for biologics, so we're in like a drug development pathway. And the problem with that is that there's no IP on the other end of the stem cell.
I refer him to this guy. I said, if I didn't put it in my own body, I would not have any business suggesting it to anybody else.
Well, my father was a maternal fetal medicine OBGYN. So when the first cord blood unit was transplanted in France in 1989, they wrote an article about that in the New England Journal of Medicine. And the cord blood transplantation, as you know, is a hematopoietic stem cell. And it's the equivalent of a bone marrow transplant. A bone marrow transplant is a stem cell transplant with the source of the stem cells being bone marrow. So you hear about people looking for bone marrow transplants following chemotherapy or radiation, and sometimes it's very hard to find because that really needs to match on an HLA level, and it has to do with like your ethnicity from your mother and your father is where you get your HLA proteins. So sometimes it's really hard for matches to be found because unfortunately most of the registry is Caucasian donors.
And it's very invasive to get it from the bone marrow.
Yeah, the bone marrow registry is actually just names of people as well. And then they go there and they have to really like prod your hip and take the cells out. It's pretty painful, and you're doing that for a stranger, but you're saving someone's life as well.
Yeah. Wow. And cord blood, you learned from your father that it's a good source for HSC, MSC.
Yeah. So cord blood doesn't need to match fully complete. So the bone marrow has to match 6 out of 6 or 8 out of 8. And they found that cord blood could match like 4 out of 6. So it makes a little bit more of a universal donor. And then the cord blood, I still think, is just a huge resource that will be used for other things other than like reconstituting the immune system in the future. It still remains to be seen, but I just know that there's gold in that bag of blood.
Well, you've been in it since 1998. That's a really long time. And I'm sure you've got a couple of treatments. So how did it help you?
Yeah, well, I've never had a cord blood treatment.
Just MSC?
Just the MSC. Yeah. So I started one of the world's first companies that looked at the umbilical cord tissue. So in the umbilical cord tissue, as you know, is the mesenchymal stem cell. So not in the blood and the vein, but in the actual Wharton's jelly is the mesenchymal cell. And around 2003, Kathy Mitchell and Mark Weiss out of Kansas discovered that was a plethora of resource of mesenchymal cells. And for me, that really, like, the light bulb went off, because that's the regenerative medicine cell, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cell that can become all 3 germ layers, which means it could become like bone, cartilage, muscle, nerve cell, begin to form the organs potentially. But that's really where I got excited, and that's when I decided to form my own company, because I was in sales and marketing in the cord blood world, and I was looking, marketing competitively. The cord blood marketing was crazy back in the day too, where like the number one like expensive word on Google ads was cord blood. It was like $23 a search, which is insane. And I think it's still pretty high.
Oh, okay. Wow. I wonder what MSC costs.
I don't know. I'm sure we can look it up, but it's not going to be as extensive because, I don't know, it was just all about marketing then, to the extent where I remember one of the cord blood banks bought like a maternity clothing store to get cord blood leads, because that was the earliest time you could like find when women are pregnant, right?
Wow.
When they need to go buy their clothes.
That's turnkey.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are some amazing marketers in that space. I mean, they built companies up to like $700 million that, now aren't really worth that much.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you feel after your treatment, your first treatment?
Yeah, so I probably have been fortunate enough to have utilized stem cells more than most people in the world, because I started a company that focused on the Wharton's jelly cells in 2008.
Mhm.
So I've had access to these cells for, many years. And I would do like quarterly injections or quarterly treatments. If I cured my plantar fasciitis, my
Oh,
tennis elbow, anything that happened. I've done male treatments,
yeah,
male sexual health treatments as well, because I sold it, and I really believe that like I should experience before I
yeah,
sell something.
yeah.
So I would try that out as well, and they're amazing treatments. Stem cells are amazing.
So it helped really with the pain and inflammation and your injury.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
And I see it as also maintenance as well. Like, why wait till you're fully injured? Whereas you can, I mean, inflammation, like aging is inflammation.
Hmm.
Um, and if you can keep tamping the inflammation down, I think it keeps your age down as well. I see it
Yeah.
as a longevity therapy, but that's more like an IV
Yeah.
treatment of these cells. And then, direct injections, like if you have a tear of your meniscus
Mm.
in your knee, is a great treatment. I mean, my brother literally, as I walked in here, just sent me a Nature article today that a paralyzed man walked in Nature, which is certainly going to be I mean, that's the most respected medical journal, so it's true.
Wow.
And he used an injection of nerve stem cells, I believe. I haven't read the article yet, but
Is your brother in the field also?
my brother, one of my brother is, yeah, my
Okay.
brother my oldest brother Curtis is a plastic surgeon who has a stem cell lab at Cedars-Sinai.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How was your treatment, Sharon?
Well, last December, I was fortunate to do an IV treatment, and the whole experience, you don't know what to expect. It's an IV, but
Did you
literally,
have any ailments at the time?
I train a lot and I
Okay.
lift a lot, so I always wake up creaky and like a
Mm-hmm.
popping back,
Mm.
and my quads or whatever I working on most recently, it's tight. And the next day, like the day prior, my quads were tight and I was fine the next day. I had a little pre-arthritis and a couple fingers clickiness going on, and that dissipated within a couple weeks. So I just like energy, metabolism. People stop me and like say, "What have you done to your skin?" So I just think overall wellness, and it's so interesting how it's smart. It just knows where to attack in your body.
Yeah.
So I sleep better. It just overall, I mean, fortunately, I didn't have any chronic ailments. So,
Okay. No
yeah,
acute injury.
correct.
You're
Hmm.
lucky
Yes.
You
because
improved your mile time dramatically, though.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I was able, about 2 weeks into it, I would always run a 10-minute mile, and I did 6:4.
wow.
And my recovery when I train, it's like, I'm great. So I've just noticed that, heart rate fluctuations, all that, it's made me a better athlete,
And you feel better.
100%.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you do it quarterly. Do you do it annually?
I will probably do it biannually. Yeah. So maybe this fall I'll do another treatment.
Wow.
Yeah. But I advocate it to anyone and everyone.
My goal is to do like 1 billion cells a year.
That's a lot.
I know. I'm not quite there. I'm about 500 million this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Tell us more in depth about the veterans. Like how can they get on this program? How can they find you? How can they reach you and get things rolling as far as treatment?
Yeah. This is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, is to provide these stem cell treatments to veterans. So I work with the Sabot Foundation, which is SABOT, and they're a really well established foundation. So any donation to help support it is fully tax deductible as well, including companies who donate the product or doctors that donate the time and that sort of thing. So through my nonprofit, the Perinatal Stem Cell Society, which is perinatalstemcells.com, you can learn about this. But for veterans who are interested, you would go to the Sabbat Foundation and you can clearly find where to apply to be a veteran in the situation. So they screen the veterans and they pick the people, the women and men who are going to be in the program. And then and they say, okay, we got another cohort. We usually do like 4 or 5 at a time in one day. And then I organize that with the doctors, and either our company will donate stem cells most of the time or get some other companies. I'm trying to make this like an industry-wide thing, because not one company can fulfill all the veterans that really need a lot of work in their bodies. I mean, their taxing of these being in the military is so damaging to their bodies, and they really need this support. And the results we've seen have been phenomenal as well. As we know, I mean, you know the power of stem cells.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible that we haven't had this access to this for so long. And when you can get this treatment to these veterans, they're so deserving of it. It's just really rewarding. And we've seen them, like a great example is one of the guys that we treated is JP Penna, and he started the movement Unfucked. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, it's a movement of to help veterans just step up their life and improve their lives through everyone's fucked, so you unfuck yourself is kind of the philosophy. It's a pretty big movement, and it's really supportive. And he went from being overweight to cycling hundreds of miles and that sort of thing, not just from the stem cells, but in his journey. And he does a really good Instagram of like his experience with us and what happened, and he's doing tremendously well, as all of them are. I think we've done maybe 20 plus veterans so far since we started this, and we have another cohort on April 6th, so this next weekend.
Where's that?
3 more.
Where is that happening? In California?
Yeah, we do that in California at Laguna Beach, and this time Dr. Francis is going to be supporting us.
So they fly in to California?
Yeah, they get flown in by the Sabbath Foundation. There's no cost to the veteran at all on this. It's a full, we do medical intake, and then the doctor decides what treatments they're going to get, and then we provide those treatments. This weekend we're doing 3 veterans because these are huge treatments, a lot of back issues, a lot of knees. I mean, when we did JP, we gave him 7 injections and an IV.
Wow.
So it wasn't just a knee, it's not just like, let's do as many as we can. It's like, let's do as many as we can completely and really get them what they want. I mean, JP was, 7 injections is a lot.
Well, how many million was that?
I think he got like 140 million or more. They're probably 20 each. It's a 20, yeah. So that was 140, and then we gave him an IV. So I think he got 200 million plus a really big exosome from an exosome company that also donated product.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. He must be feeling really good.
Yeah, but we did that to another woman. Got 6 injections. I mean, whatever they need, we'll arrange to get them that. It's not just like, oh, you can have a knee and it's what you need.
Have you touched on fibromyalgia yet for the veterans?
None of the veterans are presented with that, but that's a really great stem cell treatment. I mean, anything that has inflammation, like where the symptoms are inflammation, is a potential stem cell treatment. Stem cells aren't a cure. It's something you're probably going to have to go back to.
Yeah.
The inflammation is going to return. I just want to preface that with everybody because it's expensive but it is something.
It's not a one-time treatment.
It's not a one-time treatment because your body's going to produce more inflammation.
Yeah.
But we've seen some phenomenal results one of the veterans presented this woman with incontinence, and that really helped her. And she's like a big spokesperson for using stem cells for incontinence as well.
Wow. Was that IV or?
No, that was a direct injection is that called the O shot?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I haven't heard that. That's amazing. How old is she?
Mid-30s maybe.
Was she a veteran also?
Yeah, they're all veterans, yeah.
Young veteran, 30.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have suggestions for these veterans or patients prior or before treatment, like alcohol?
Yeah, certainly alcohol. I mean, alcohol and stem cells don't match. Like as soon as you drink alcohol, your stem cell treatment is pretty much ablated. So I'm really working on trying to put a great protocol. I love your thoughts on that too. But I think, an EBU treatment prior to, certainly high fiber diet can help. Certainly no alcohol, hyperbaric chamber red light therapy, pre and post, all like the longevity modalities
Mm-hmm.
are helpful along, supporting your stem cell treatments as well.
What's EBU?
EBU's oxygen treatment, where you it's kind of like a transfusion where your blood runs through the system and it cleans it out. I've never actually experienced it myself. Have you had that?
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I think next month. Yeah.
Yeah, they do it here in Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
How much is that run?
It's normally about $2,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and it's, he said the equipment is very expensive. It's like what they use for dialysis.
Yeah. I wonder what the benefits are.
Heavy metal, toxins, removing toxins from your blood, heavy metals.
Oh, okay.
So when somebody does go in to do a treatment, you're working with a cleaner space.
Nice. So, Sharon, if you come to like a client and they have lots of questions about stem cells, since you are a patron, and a voice of experience, like what are your topics? How do you persuade them that it's safe, it's good quality, it's a good treatment?
Well, number one, I refer him to this guy because he's a technician on all that. But I believe people listen to me, and I said,
I'm sure you get lots of questions.
I do. And it's, if I didn't put it in my own body, I would not have any business suggesting it to anybody else.
Yeah.
What I have noticed, more and more people are getting self-educated on stem cells, and it's becoming a very hot topic.
Yeah.
So,
and hopefully the positive stuff.
100%. And I feel like with anything, if you have to convince somebody that this is good for you, have a nice day, move on. So like-minded people attract it. And that's kind of where I'm at. If people are hesitant and aggressive in some way, it's like, gotta go.
It's not for them.
No.
Do you get difficult questions also, Kyle?
Yeah. I mean, everyone wants to know everything about it, but for me, I think it's just such a phenomenal technology that I wish it was much more affordable so everyone could try it. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, is that make this like a universal, where I feel, when I see like people our parents' age that didn't experience this, really, that it really kind of makes me angry, because it's not like we throw these cells in the garbage all the time from the umbilical cord. They can be really universally, and I think people should really have much more access to them, and they're pretty safe. The umbilical cord, expanded umbilical cord MSCs, I mean, there's 30,000 peer-reviewed papers that talk about their efficiencies, how they could be used for, almost any indication. I mean, if you go on ChatGPT and just put in, umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells for that indication and ask for like clinical trials and a review of the papers, if the symptoms are like inflammation, which is like any injury, cancer, stroke, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Crohn's disease, Lyme disease. I mean, just go down the list of where people are really suffering. Long COVID, even COVID. There's a paper that had 100% cure rate from people under 75 that were on ventilators that were 100% cured, but it just stuck. It went through a phase 2 and then it stopped because no funding was available to fund it.
Yeah.
So this is like the greatest medical tool that is just sitting on the sidelines waiting to be released. And I can't wait till it is, because people aren't going to go back once this is out of the box, because they're going to see the benefit of it. I really believe that, like, of all the longevity treatments, that this is like 100x over anything else that people talk about.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think the FDA is ever going to approve it for the public?
I do. I think that there's high-level discussions going on. RFK, I was very frustrated in 2023. I just basically sold the IP to my old company because I was moving on, because I didn't see any movement. And then Utah passed a bill that I saw it becoming like a states' rights versus federal rights, sort of the way cannabis went. California passed like medical marijuana, then state by state picked it up.
Yeah.
And Utah passed a bill that said non-FDA approved stem cells are legal if you put this paper in your window of your clinic. But that really doesn't do a great job because it doesn't provide enough oversight. There has to be like some oversight, but not enough to stifle innovation. And right now, there's no real pathway regulatory wise for biologics. So we're in like a drug development pathway. And the problem with that is that there's no IP on the other end of the stem cell because you can't patent a cell or
Yeah.
DNA in the US. So it's really difficult. There's actually a term in the industry called the valley of death.
Mm.
And that's when you have a successful phase 2 and you can't get funding for a phase 3 because you need like $250 million to do a phase 3 generally.
Really?
And you don't have any if you have a small molecule, you have 17 years of a patent on that. So it's worth investing $1 billion 10 times if one of those gets through, like Viagra or any of the drugs that you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
They have patents and they have protection. Whereas if I take a mesenchymal stem cell, take it all the way through, spend $1 billion, get approval, you guys could come right behind me and do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get that big chunk funded. And plus, the FDA also hasn't been very friendly with stem cells. I mean, they just approved a stem cell therapy that was the original kind of therapy that came out of Case Western, and Dr. Arnold Kaplan was one of the original founders of mesenchymal stem cells, and he started the development of the drug in 1996 that got approved like this last January in the
Wow.
US. And this was a drug that would treat children who'd already gone through cancer and then had a reaction to their stem cell transplant, then failed the steroids, which is the first line of treatment to fix that reaction,
Mm-hmm.
called graft versus host disease, where your body rejects the graft. So your host rejects the graft. And it says like a 90% mortality rate for that population.
Mm-hmm.
And they just approved it now. Where it was
Wow.
approved in Canada in 2012, New Zealand in 2014, and it works. So it's just like the slow pace of development. It's really hard to run a company, and you're not making money when you're doing clinical trials. So to run it for 30 years, it's gone through 4 different companies, and finally Mesoblast, the Australian company who now owns it, got it out.
Wow. So is this why a lot of patients are going to third world countries like Mexico and Panama to
Yeah.
get treatments because there's no FDA regulations
Well,
there?
it's actually and what I'm working on now is the expanded umbilical cord cells. So there are products that are available in the US, but there's a framework where you can create your product to fit in the framework, but it's not necessarily the most efficacious product. But as soon as you culture the cells and grow them, you bump into a drug. So they go to Mexico and Costa Rica and Colombia because you can grow the cells and that you're getting the expanded mesenchymal cells. And the advantage of that is that you can accurately dose them, and you can give large amounts of them, and they're also small enough for IV. So they're safe enough for IV because it's a homologous population of cells, and they're all small enough for IV. Whereas if you just take like all the ingredients in the cord, there's some collagen fibers and whatnot that might be too large for IV and could cause an aneurysm.
Yeah. Do you feel the safety is, they're on top of their safety, like in Mexico? And
I don't really know because like where do they get their cells from? I don't think it's the ideal situation, but a lot of those clinics do have good results because this isn't that difficult, right? Like every university lab from a major hospital could create a phenomenal stem cell product if they were just allowed to do it.
yeah, so it's not really proprietary. It's depends a lot on the laboratory and
Well, I think you need to have good manufacturing processes, third-party sterility testing. But you think about these things, like how many blood transfusions happen every day? It goes through the same process. People aren't getting E. coli in those processes. So if you just follow like good laboratory procedures, this is actually really safe.
yeah, I think so.
It's when the problem we've had in the industry in the past is that since there's no oversight, people come in that don't have any scientific background and start making stem cells, and they don't know how to do it even at the basic laboratory requirements. Whereas if there's just like a basic oversight, some safety, some efficacy, then I think it should be able to be released rather than going through, all the clinical trial pathway. It's just too onerous.
Yeah, and I think the FDA these past couple of years have done a good job at shutting down those laboratories that are, just pop-up labs that have just started to or tried to get into the business, because it's not rocket science to aliquot and manufacture stem cells. So it's just what's important is the screening process, right, of the donors, and then the sterility and bacterial testing and the handling. So with that, you have a safe product that's universal, like you said, and can help many diseases. There's a lot of clinical trials on at least 75 diseases that are being treated right now with stem cell therapy. So I love it. It's hopeful. I do it every single year. Sometimes more than that, like if I just had an ACL tear, so I had to get that injected, and then I also did tennis elbow.
Tennis
So
elbow is phenomenal, isn't it? It's
yeah,
like overnight it was over, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. Inflammation was gone. The knee injection, I was limping, got it injected by my ortho. The next day, I'm wearing heels. Pain gone. The regeneration does take a while, but the inflammation just overnight gone. What's your favorite success story?
My favorite success story, this is actually a great story. I actually helped a child with autism.
Wow.
Really, really changed that family's life. And it was one of those things, I was actually telling someone about it today because I was talking to other autistic foundations about trying to do things sort of like what we're doing with the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman was like, the mama bear.
Yeah.
Her son, she realized has autism, and she was on a war path to do everything she could to help him, which is so many moms in that situation.
Yeah.
Your child's sick, whether cancer or whatever, you're going to do everything you can. And she did everything she could, and she saved her cord blood. And there was a clinical trial at Duke University. It has a 25,000 person wait list. It was a compassionate use study, and she got into the trial, and she went to pull her cord blood from this company, and it had E. coli in it.
Oh.
And she was not allowed to use it. So she called me through
her own cord
blood. Yep. And she got so she called me through my perinatal society, like in tears. Can you fix it? Can you help me? And I said no, but that's actually not the cell you want to use anyway for this thing. So I got her some in the underground umbilical cord cells, and her son is in like advanced Spanish now.
Wow.
So that was pretty phenomenal. You can go to Cord Tissue for Autism on Facebook and see the story.
Cord Tissue?
He was young. He was 3. It works a lot better when you treat children really young. And I know the studies on cerebral palsy. I mean, cerebral palsy should be eradicated with stem cells, because if you track it, and there's indications when you're going, like during the labor, there's like low, like pH less than 7. Basically, cerebral palsy is called because the cord usually wraps around the neck, and it's a brain injury. But you can't really tell that, in the newborn, but you can start to see it like a year later. But there's indications that happened during delivery, in which case they should automatically save those units and then if the child presents with cerebral palsy, give them a transplant within a year of life, and it has incredible results for changing that brain injury.
Yeah. I wonder if she gets treatment for her son every year.
The stem cells? No, I don't think she does anything since then.
Wow.
I think we did 2 rounds with her. But he came out to the Perinatal Society conference, and we were playing, soccer and stuff. It was great. It's such a rewarding experience. I've seen some other experiences with autism.
So it's great for autoimmune, autism, and inflammation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have a lot to do with Lyme disease as well, like with the gut health and indications from gut. I think that the gut is really important for way over like underlooked and undervalued. I personally, I think it could have really traumatic brain injury, concussion, long COVID. We've seen great results with long COVID. I think like 14% of people have long COVID in this country.
I think so.
Like that's a huge population of people who are really struggling. And long COVID is like a serious, debilitating, I guess, illness. And this is a great tool that can really help, and it's just not available. So I think in 10 years, this is going to be like an incredibly different world of stem cells. And you saw Walgreens has like a cell and gene division now.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where I kind of see this going, where like we'll go get our flu shot at, maybe we'll go get our stem cells the same way, and that would be awesome. I think it should be like quarterly treatments for everybody, and particularly for athletes. I mean, we mentioned like Sharon's mile I was so impressed by that, but also like if you're a pro athlete and like your salaries, I mean, the top NBA guys get paid like $40 million a year. So if you can extend your career like a year or two, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in advancement. So like I could see pitchers in baseball, like after a start getting some sort of stem cell. There's really like 3 different kind of packages of stem cell.
Mm-hmm.
There's like exosomes, or like a quick acting, short duration.
Acellular
As well. So, but they don't last as long as cells, but they do have a quick impact. And then the cells are like a longer impact. And then there's some new types of cells like Muse cell therapy and, different iPS cell lines that will come down the line that will be even more potent. So I don't see like one treatment. I see a whole combination of them along with all the other longevity treatments as like as a long-term health package. And that's how I'm trying to approach it, and really designing like my own program and then sharing it with people.
And you have a book out, right?
I've edited 3 books.
3?
Yeah, 3 textbooks. I'm writing a new book called The Biohacker's Guide to Stem Cells. It's not quite out yet, but it's on its way.
It's on its way?
Yeah.
And how can everyone find you online?
Through perinatal stem cells. I don't have a big Instagram profile right now because unfortunately, if you talk about this stuff on Instagram, you become a target.
Yeah.
And that doesn't allow me to help people.
So perinatalstemcells.com.
Perinatalstemcells.com. Yep. Okay. It's my current setup.
Nice. How can we find you, Sharon?
You can find me on Instagram. It's just at Sharon_AND_Chanel. Again, I haven't really broadcasted too much because of the legalities.
Yeah.
So
she's a really good liaison as far as experiencing the product and the treatment. You have nothing but good things to say about it. I mean, it helped you with your injury and your running time. So I'm convinced it worked for you.
Thank you.
As it did for me and for you as well, Kyle.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
I hope to see you guys back here in 6 months and get an update on the veterans. And let me know.
Right now we have I think we're really close to getting like a Melissa Gates Foundation grant, which will be like $1 million that will go directly into veteran treatments. And then we'll be able to make like a really sick program with like post and pre. I'm working with this really cool company called Brain Code Centers, potentially. Well, I'm not working with them yet, but I hope to. And they have like this mapping of your brain, like if you get a concussion or you go in, even with anxiety, it's actually like a mental health group. They tap your brain and then they give you like meditation and practices, and then they follow your brain patterns to show like improvement and track where you need to focus on based on these areas of your brain. It's like phenomenal technology, and I'd love to like incorporate that into like pre and post stem cell treatments as well, for particularly with like long COVID or symptoms, Parkinson's, something that's affecting your neural cells, and follow the progress. There's a bunch of other techniques. What's really cool about like today's world is that there's data that we can track. So we can say this actually worked and here's the evidence, as opposed to, like Sharon right now, I feel better. It's anecdotal. Yeah, it works. We know it, but it'd be great if we could be like, here's my chart, and here's where I was, here I went to, and then I went back there. You could like know when it's appropriate to do a stem cell again.
Yeah. Like an annual assessment, maybe.
Yeah. And my biomarker was like, I do, complete blood panels every year. And I compared this year's after my treatment. Everything was better, more optimum.
So no abnormal levels. Everything was within normal limits.
Yes.
Wow.
And everything good. I can't remember exactly what was for the positive. So
I believe it. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you, Eloisa.
We'll see you back here soon.